Hey guys, today we're going to look at a Mitsubishi Shogun and Pajero 3.2 DID. So basically what it is, the top chain guide, common fault is to break off. So I've got one with the old type guide on, and I'm going to obviously replace it for the new type. If they break off, they can go down through the timing chain, cause all sorts of damage. So it's best, if you've got the old type on there, it's best to get it done before it breaks. So yeah, so I'll show you guys how to check it and also how to replace it. So let's go through it. So the first thing we're going to start with, guys, I'm going to show you how to check the top tensioner guide by removing the oil filler cap. Now you need a small mirror, but what you can basically do is look at the top of the chain, and you'll see once I take it all apart and I got the cover off, you'll see where it is and how it's located. But this is how you just check it. So if you look in through the hole, now we're looking at the chain, you can see the bolt that holds the actual guide in place. Now what we're going to do is, if I just look around to the side, you'll see the chain and you'll see the gear, and if you follow it along you will see the nut. Now if you look here now, I'll just highlight it. So this by here now is where the guide sits, just over the chain, and obviously if yours is snapped off, then that's what you want to be looking at. So now you've seen that you have got the old tensioner. What we're going to do is we're going to strip it down. So first thing we're going to remove is the engine cover. Now the second thing you're going to have to do is you're going to have to remove this Egr pipe that goes over the rocker cover. Now there's a little bracket here. The easiest way is just to take the two 12mm headed bolts straight out of the bracket, so that the bracket comes off with the pipe. It's a lot easier than disconnecting the pipe away from it. Plus the bracket will be in your way when you're trying to do other things. So I like to just get that out the way. So that's that removed. Now we're going to take the two 12mm headed nuts. Now I believe these could be 13mm head, but mainly 12, which hold the pipe to the actual Egr. I think it's Egr cooler. And then what we're going to do then is take the nuts. There should be little washers as well under there, so we'll just take all them off. Now the gasket will stay on there, guys, because it's on studs, so when you remove the pipe, the gasket will just stay in place, so don't worry about that one too much. There's just two nuts to remove. There we go. Now the next thing we're going to do, we're going to take a 14mm deep socket on a ratchet, and there's two bolts which go in from the back, from the bulkhead side, obviously facing back towards the bulkhead, so as you can see there now. So just undo them. Now you've got to be a bit careful. Best to take the bottom bolt out first, and then when you'll actually see there's a gasket that sits between the flange and the actual Egr valve itself. So what you want to do is just hold the gasket when you take the bolt out so it doesn't drop. There is like a lump that sticks out that should stop it dropping, but you know, the last thing you want to do is be hunting around in your engine for this. So I like to just grab hold of it and just pull it up when I take it off. So that's what I'm going to do now, is take the two bolts out and remove the gasket. And there she is. So now we've done that, we can lift the whole lot off, which obviously quite simple, and that's, believe it or not, that is it. Now there's an earth strap on the back corner which we're going to remove the bolt, which is out of this bracket that sticks up at the back. So we're going to remove the earth strap, and there we go. I'll just tuck him up so he's in plain view, so I don't forget to put him back on. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the engine breather pipe, obviously using a special pair of pliers, and just turn it out the way so it's away from the rocker cover. Now there is a little electrical harness on the front. It's just held on by a little tab. You just pull the tab back and lift it up, and that's out the way. So there we go. So now it's just a matter of removing all your rocker cover bolts. Now there is, I think it's 8 of these, so they're all just a 10mm headed bolt. So I always like to slacken them all off first, and then I like to go around and take them all out one by one. But the two down the back on the bulkhead, they are a little bit difficult. I had to use just a deep socket on the ratchet, and I had very little movement. So once you've cracked them off a bit, you can just wind them off with your fingers, but obviously just put the socket in your fingers and wind them out with a socket. But yeah, it's a little bit awkward, but that's the only two that's awkward. The rest of them are really easy. So I've sped this up, guys, just to make it a bit quicker, because you know, there's nothing more boring than watching someone taking bolts out. But there it is. So I'm just showing you the bolt here. So as you can see, it's a bolt with a washer, a rubber, and a metal sleeve. So make sure you've got all that when you take it out. And if you just lift the bolt out, make sure that you grab hold of the washer, the rubber, and the sleeve, and you lift them out as well, because you need them to go back, so you want to keep them all tidy. I replaced my rocker cover gasket, but I didn't actually replace the rubbers on the bolts because there was nothing wrong with them. So here we go. So there she is. So all we do then is just lift the cover up as high as it'll come, and then pull it forward, and off it comes. Now, as you can see right at the front, there's my chain and my guide with my two 12mm headed bolts. So we just remove the two bolts and lift the chain guide up. Now, it is careful to note here, there are two different types of cam chain tensioners. Now, there's a spring-loaded and obviously a ratcheting type. Now, this one has a spring-loaded hydraulic tensioner. So, if by removing this slider, the chain will actually tension a bit, because obviously we're actually taking a bit of slack off the chain, and the tensioner will take that slack up. Now, when I bolt this new one on, it will spring the tensioner back and it won't hurt it. So don't worry about that, guys. It's just straight, take it off and bolt it back on. So there's my new one in genuine packaging. I did buy this one on eBay, if anyone's wondering, and it cost me half the price of what my dealer wanted. So you work that one out. Now, as you can see, there's a lot more metal on the newer one. So this is what you want to look for when you're looking in your mirror, in through the hole. You want to see the difference in the amount of metal in the middle, and see them cutouts in the metal. Then you know you've got the old type. So I'm just going to bolt these down like I said earlier. The tensioner is spring-loaded, so when I wind these bolts down and it pulls pressure on the chain, the tensioner will spring back and it will be fine. So don't worry about, you don't touch your timing. Your timing all stays as it is. It's just a matter of remove and refit. And believe it or not, guys, that's it. It's just a good nip on them two bolts. You'll feel how tight they are when you undo them, but they're not overly tight. There's not a huge amount of tension on them. And then that's it. So I'm going to replace my rocker cover. Now, this was the most expensive part of the job, believe it or not. But I've made the mistake of reusing old rocker cover gaskets, and I've learnt the hard way by obviously having an oil leak at a later date. So I always replace them. I believe my gasket was about £20. So considering the tensioner was only £12.50, it makes the job a lot more expensive. But the last thing I want is a comeback. So it's a good friend of mine's truck I did this on, so I wanted to make sure that everything was right. So the only thing to point out, guys, is you'll see this little step here in the casing. Obviously, I had to line that up to get the rocker cover gasket in the right place, but it can only really go on in two ways. Now, I take a bit of red rubber grease, and I love this stuff for any sort of O-ring or gasket with a rubber gasket. So I'm just going to rub it around the surface just to help it get a good seal on the rocker cover. You could use oil or you could use anything, but I just put a bit around there now on top of the seal. And then when I bolt the rocker cover on to where it obviously sits on the cylinder head, the rubber grease will just make it sit quite nice. So there we go. And that's it. So we're just going to drop the rocker cover back into place and then reassemble. So I hope this was helpful, guys. I hope it helps you. It's a really simple job. There's nothing too much to it. Anyone can do this themselves with basic tools. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and hope you like my video.